Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode on my Work in Progress channel. As you can see, I've now cleared the attic from the 80s town and I'm working on a new project. I wanted to start with the automated container terminal that I worked on previously, but there are some technical difficulties that I need to solve. So there's a bit of a hassle to start on that project. So in the meantime, I wanted to do a small project, which obviously turns out to be a big project as well. So I wanted to do a dinosaur crash video, and I wanted to show you something about the layout that I have laying around here. So maybe you remember the skyscraper crash that I did a few years ago. It had this cool matrix-like rotating camera effect while the skyscraper was going down. Well, I'm trying to do the same thing here, but there are some challenges that I had to solve, which I'm going to show you right now. So in the previous skyscraper video, I had a camera dolly that you see here, but it was much more simple. It was just a PF train running on full speed with a action cam on top of it. And I could do that because it was running a complete circle around the things that it would hit the skyscraper. In this case, I can't do that because I'm using a backdrop. Well, at least I tried to make a nice looking backdrop, as the floor is going to be tan as well. I'm going to do some landscaping or something like that. I don't know yet. So because of this backdrop, I cannot make it run all the way around the T-Rex. So I'm gonna make it stop. Next to that, it has an intersection, of course, where the trains will run to the dinosaur. Where's my finger? There's my finger. So it runs down this track, the train, and crashes into the dinosaur. In the meantime, this camera dolly will ride that way during the crash. So with the T-Rex, this is a bit different because it's a low object, it's more dense. I don't know even if it's gonna have some nice footage or not. So I think 2-3 seconds most, then the whole crash is over. Less than with the skyscraper. So I needed to upgrade my camera dolly. It needed to move faster. Well, that's a problem because one battery box, 9 volts, delivered to the motor, that wasn't fast enough. So I needed to install a secondary battery box that you see here, which makes a total of 18 volts. But I put some rectifier bridges on the battery boxes to make sure that I don't switch polarity and blow up my Arduino, stuff like that. So it takes up a few volts, but in the end I have like 16 volt left that can power the motor, which is way too much. So I used a trick that's called pulse width modulation. I use it all the time for controlling the speed of trains. What you basically do is you send a 16 volt signal to the motor, but it's not continuously on. So if you have, for example, 50% duty cycle on your PWM signal, it means that 50% of the time it gets 16 volt, and the rest, the other 50%, it gets 0 volts. So and this is switched very, very fast. So in the end, what you get is an average of around 8 volts. Let's put it like that. It works a bit like that. So that's happening here as well. So I don't want to crank it too much because that'll destroy the motor probably. But I need speed as well. So that problem is solved by using 2 battery boxes, like I said. But then there's another problem, and that is it needs to stop in time. Otherwise, it's gonna crash into the backdrop. So I installed a few magnets under the tracks, and there's a double reed switch underneath the camera dolly that detects the magnetic field of the magnets. It sends it through the microcontroller, and the microcontroller knows it has to stop. But also here the thing is pretty heavy with a GoPro and 2 battery boxes, so you can't just stop it. It just continue rolling down to the backdrop, so you need to brake it actively. So I found a nice way to do that. You can't I've done it previously by just reversing the polarity. So you got 9 volts and then you reverse it to minus 9 volts. The wheels turn around the other way around, and it'll actively brake the train. But in this case, when you have like 16 volts and you turn it around, that's a lot of stress for the motor. So I wanted to brake it a bit, but not too much. So what it actually does is it increases the PWM signal the other way around. So basically what happens is when it hits the magnets, it reverses polarity, but it starts like with 1 volt average and it climbs up until 16 volts, but just gradually, not at once. And that makes a nice braking mechanism that doesn't put a lot of strain on the motor. So that's what I put inside this little camera dolly that you see here. And as you can see, I've installed a GoPro on top of it, and with that I can shoot a cool footage. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a dry test first. I'm gonna show you the movement of this camera dolly, and then we're gonna do a test with I'm gonna throw some bricks at the T-Rex, and I'm gonna see what the end result is on the GoPro. So let's have a look. So this is the starting position of the camera dolly. I enable the power. That's it. It brakes and it's backing up now. It is also part of the program. Oh, the track broke down there. That's it. Alright, so this was a dry run, and as you can see the track has broken down because it was braking pretty fast and the momentum of the train made the whole track move. I'm gonna make a fix for that, so I'm gonna place the end of the track against the backdrop, and that would solve this little problem. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do a real test. So let's see how that looks like. So I got this camera set up, I got the GoPro camera dolly set up. I got a few bricks in my hand that I will throw to the T-Rex, but I have to throw it on the right moment. So the timing has to be right, so I hope this works. That's it. I have no idea how that looked, but we're gonna have a look. So this is the result, and it looks like crap, really. There are a few things going on here. The first thing is the image is blocky. That's probably because I used the zoom function for a bit. I set it on 1.3. I thought it would be good to have a bit of a zoom function, to have the T-Rex bigger in the picture, but it destroys the image. So that's the disadvantage of digital zoom. So next to that, you see a lot of noise in the picture. That's because we're shooting at 200 frames per second frame rate, and with that kind of FPSs, you need a lot of light. So I need to crank up the lighting, and you can see that when the camera has stopped, you can still see it move to the right, and that has to do with a hyper smooth function on the GoPro that I have, and that makes the camera a bit smoother. But as you can see, sudden moves are filtered out, and by doing so, it doesn't look good. So I need to disable that function as well. So let's try again. Alright, next shot. Well, the previous shot was probably shot in 50 frames a second, because I set the lens in a certain angle, and that certain angle was only available with 50 frames a second. So we're gonna do it in a wide angle now with 200 frames a second. The downside of the wide angle is that you'll see the ends of the backdrop sooner. So I don't know how it looks on camera, but we'll just have to see. I also updated the lighting and turned off hyper smooth. So let's have a look. Alright, this is the clip with 200 frames a second with the wide lens, and it's very noisy image. That's also a GoPro thing. I have also a Sony X3000, which is way better image quality wise. But I'm using this GoPro because I wanted to use the linear lens function and not the wide lens function. Also because I was working on the 80s video and it had the backdrop too, so I wanted to have a narrow lens for that. But it turns out I cannot use that with 200 frames a second, which is a bit of a shame. So at this point I can run a denoiser on it, but I don't know how it looks like after that. And you can see the camera is a bit wobbly, but that's not a real bad thing. It's just, yeah, not totally happy. So you can also see the top of the backdrop, and that's no problem. I just have to aim the camera a bit down, and then that problem is solved. But as you can see, the dinosaur isn't very close to the camera. So there are two options I have right now. One option is shooting at 100 frames a second instead of 200. Then I can use the narrow function or the linear lens function and have a less smooth replay of the crash. I could also use a track with a radius a bit smaller than the current one, and by doing so you get a bit closer to the dinosaur. But I don't know if I can run the camera on the same speed. As the radius is smaller, it might flip out of the curve, you know. So that's something I need to think about probably. Need to clean the lens as well. So the image itself, it's cool. The speed of the camera is fine like this. We're gonna do one more test with a linear lens and with 100 frames a second. So if I want to cut down to 25% of the speed, that means I end up with 25 frames a second, which is the bare minimum. I like 50 frames a second a lot more, but I have to choose between lenses and frames a second and stuff like that. So I just have to work with what I got, or I have to order some additional track. Alright, so this is footage, 100 frames a second, down to 25% with a linear lens, and it looks pretty good. There are some bumps over here and there that you can see the top of the backdrop, so I need to point it a bit more downwards. That's not a big deal. What is a big deal is that you can see the end of the backdrop before it stops turning, which is about this point, which is just a small piece, so I just need to turn it a bit and or place it on the other side of the dolly. Right now it's on the left side, and so it goes all the way to the left before it stops. So maybe if I put it on the right, that gives a bit more slack, because on the other side we have still enough room. So those are two things I need to adjust, and then we're probably good to go. I need some denoising filter on top of it, and then we're good to go. Right now that's what I want to do. I'm gonna do some landscaping. I'm gonna wait for a second crossing that I need. I used one crossing now because I got one track leading to the T-Rex. I want to go with two tracks. One train hits the left foot or his right foot, and the other train goes up a bit on the ramp, and the other train is going on the ramp, so it can smash it directly into the head. Enough T-Rex bullying for right now, I believe. I'm gonna do some landscaping. I'm gonna make it look all nicely, and I'm gonna shoot the video. So this was just a quick preview of what I'm doing right now. I hope you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more of my work in progress stuff, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.